Hey guys, tonight we drift down Pall Mall at the witching hour, the cobbles shining with rain and moonlight, while Georgian London stretches its arms in a half-dream and prepares for the oddest foot race you never trained for. You probably won't survive this without tripping over a chamber pot, or the snoring barrister already tottering ahead of you, so mind your step. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments so we can map who's nodding off in Nairobi and who's wide-eyed in New Hampshire. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You slide past shuttered shop fronts, whose gold leaf signage glints under scattered oil lanterns. It's 11:30, yet windows above creak open as curious faces peer at the spectacle below. The city is literally sleepwalking into sport. A distant church bell chimes 12. Chimney soot drifts like grey confetti. A lamplighter mutters a prayer for quiet ankles. Mainstream historical fact: by the 1780s, fashionable coffeehouses regularly advertised somnambulist displays, claiming brisk nocturnal strolls strengthened nerves and balanced melancholic humours. Physicians penned pamphlets touting staged sleepwalking as a restorative exercise, though they cautioned against brandy nightcaps that might send walkers careening into gutter puddings. Ahead, an orange glow pools in front of the Turk's Head coffeehouse, where men in velvet banyans sip thick chocolate and lay wagers on tonight's human nightcrawlers. A boy rushes past you, waving broadsheets that list odds. Lady Farnham's nephew, 5-1, known to drift elegantly over coal scuttles. Joke one hovers, only Georgian London could gamble on unconscious etiquette and call it science. Quirky tidbit: some bettors swear sprinkling crushed laudanum on a nightcap increases glide efficiency, though skeptics insist it merely decorates pillows with overpriced perfume. You keep moving ever so softly, so as not to wake the competitors toward the Strand. There, a loose rope marks tonight's starting line, its ends tethered to two slumbering footmen who volunteered to be human posts. Their snores rise in counterpoint to the river's lap against embankment pilings. Gentlemen in satin waistcoats tiptoe around chalk arrows showing the course, muttering strategies like golf caddies advising dreams. First tester swishes long reed across cobbles to measure potential toe stubs. Historians still argue whether these elaborate preparations aimed at authentic medical inquiry or merely provided high society an excuse to place scandalous bets after theatre curtain calls. Around the corner, a minor scuffle breaks out. Two candleboys disagree over whose lantern will lead the opening lap. Candle smoke, some doctors claim, guides the somnambulist gaze like a sleepy lighthouse. Others snort that the only true guide is luck and well-greased joints. You catch a whiff of tallow and lavender. Apparently, tonight's walkers were dabbed with calming oils to keep nightmares from steering them into shop windows. Joke two tiptoes: lavender may soothe nerves, but it won't negotiate with a runaway sedan chair. A carriage rattles by, its coachman glaring at the gathering, as though worried his horses might start sleep-trotting in sympathy. You edge closer to the contestants, now assembled in various states of conscious non-consciousness. One plump merchant dozes upright, arms outstretched like a wind vane. His nightshirt sports embroidered guinea coins, perhaps hoping fortune favors the flamboyant. Another slim clerk leans on a cane topped with a glowworm-lit orb, a runway light for the subconscious. The crowd murmurs approval. Mainstream fact slides back in. Contemporary diaries record entire London streets clearing furniture and buckets to create safe corridors, believing sudden obstacles could snap a sleepwalker awake and invoke dangerous brain shocks. Indeed, pamphlets by Dr. Erasmus Darwin advised gentle redirection over abrupt rousing, yet gamblers secretly sprinkled pebbles near rival favourites, believing a stubbed toe produced comedic detours worth wagering on. You spy one sly nobleman flicking a pebble in Lady Farnham's nephew's lane. Justice arrives as his own silk slipper slips off, exposing a mismatched stocking. Joke 3 smirks. Karma wears argyle. Church bells toll 1:15. An officiant, eyes half closed himself, raises a silver dinner bell, its soft ding chosen to resonate with dream ears without rupturing slumber. Walkers wobble into motion. You feel the street exhale. All conversation drops to hush. Fans flutter instead of clapsticks. Even gambling slips exchange hands like feathered quills. The race begins not with a sprint but with gentle shuffling, like marionettes guided by invisible strings. You trail the procession, feet matching their drowsy cadence. Lantern boys glide backward, illuminating faces slack yet determined. Each step reveals tiny dramas. A snorer's mouth flaps rhythmically. A powdered wig tilts then rights itself like a sailing mast. Candle wax drips onto a velvet robe without waking its wearer. Observers purse lips to stifle giggles. Noise risks sabotage. Somewhere behind, a watchman's owl hoot whistle echoes. Everyone freezes, fearing the sharp trill might jolt walkers awake. Miraculously, none stir. You breathe again, realizing you're sharing a fragile theater woven from dark wax and suspended consciousness. Clouds shrug off the moon. Silver washes over rooftops. The race inches along Fleet Street gutters, avoiding a startled pig rummaging for apple cores. You see the merchant's embroidered coins glint as he navigates a puddle like a sleep-born ballerina. Historians still argue whether onlookers guided racers telepathically. Belief in somnambulate sympathy flourished in pamphlets, or whether simple muscle memory steered habitual paths. Whatever the mechanism, the crowd invests hope in each shuffle, hush amplifying every candle flicker. As the field rounds a tight corner near Covent Garden, you feel exhilaration mingle with absurdity. These drowsy athletes may never collect their wages, yet their somber pageant knits midnight London into collective hush. You tighten your cloak against the night's damp promise, ready to shadow them farther, deeper into Georgian curiosity where medicine, betting and dream logic intertwine. You drift into the Turk's Head coffeehouse, careful not to scrape your heels on the oak boards. Even the floorboards seem sworn to silence tonight. The interior hums with muffled excitement, voices pitched to a conspiratorial hiss, teaspoons stirring chocolate with the stealth of pickpockets. Candle sconces throw golden halos across walnut tables, and the air smells of roasted beans, orange peel and damp wool drying by the hearth. You weave between periwigged heads bent over betting ledgers, feeling like a ghost eavesdropping on waking dreams. At a corner table, two powdered ladies in lace caps pretend to discuss Italian opera while sliding silver shillings onto a scrap of parchment marked "Somnambulist Sweep." Their fans flutter like nervous moths each time a new odds adjustment is whispered. Mainstream historical fact: Georgian coffeehouses often doubled as informal betting parlours, tracking wagers on everything from bare-knuckle boxing to the precise timing of royal pregnancies. Sleepwalk racing slots neatly among these divertissements as harmless midnight amusement. One lady giggles that the clerk with the glowworm cane looks sprightly in his stupor, then stifles her laughter behind a teacup. A bow-legged bookmaker in a mulberry waistcoat circulates with a small abacus, tapping beads each time a coin clinks onto the oak. He offers you a discreet booklet titled "Somnus Stakes," listing categories such as longest continuous snore, most graceful turn, and quietest footstep, complete with payout ratios. Joke one whispers, Vegas wishes it had a line on REM cycles. You slide a copper into the pot for quietest footstep, backing Lady Farnham's nephew despite his sabotage pebble. After all, rumours claim he once traversed an entire wainscoted hallway without rattling a single portrait. Across the room, an earnest physician in spectacles polishes a silver snuff box engraved with Hippocrates' bust. He explains to a captivated banker that deliberate somnambulism strengthens the animal spirits without taxing the sanguine humours. Quirky tidbit: this same doctor purportedly charges guinea fees to host sleep salons, where insomniac aristocrats pay to be sung into locomotion by Italian castrati under controlled candlelight. He offers to demonstrate at dawn, should the banker's gout allow. A journalist from the Morning Chronicle sits nearby, ink-stained fingers poised over shorthand notes. He sketches caricatures of tonight's hopefuls, labeling one "The Moaning Merchant" and another "Count Candlestick." Historians still argue whether newspaper coverage legitimized the races or merely fanned fashionable satire. Early editions alternately praised the events as benign curiosities and condemned them as bedroom farce parading in the gutter. The journalist winks, promising tomorrow's readers a headline: "Somnambulist shuffles stir stuffy streets." Joke 2 smirks, "Fleet Street never met a pun, it couldn't drag from bed." At the bar, the landlord lines up cordial glasses containing amber liquid labelled Dream Glide. It's a cordial of warm milk, brandy, nutmeg and a suspicious drizzle of poppy syrup, marketed as a sleepwalker priming tonic. You sample a thimbleful, creamy warmth blooms in your throat, and a faint drowsiness rolls behind your eyes like lazy surf. Still lucid, you eavesdrop on a trio debating technique. One insists pinning a small weight to each competitor's nightcap centers gravity and guides direction. Another favors whispering repeated street names into a sleeper's ear as they doze off so their unconscious mind follows the echo. The third proposes placing mild vinegar under each walker's nose to stimulate forward momentum, though he admits it sometimes merely launches sneezes. A sudden hush sees everyone crane toward the doorway. A footman appears escorting Sir Alonzo Smith, a foppish rake renowned for drifting entire dinner parties mid-sentence. Sir Alonzo lolls in a silk gown patterned with chartreuse moons. His valet holds him upright until the physician waves a lavender sachet beneath the nobleman's nose. Sir Alonzo's eyes flutter but remain closed. Bets spike accordingly. Mulberry bookmaker clacks abacus beads so fast they sound like hail. Joke 3. Apparently, high society admired him more unconscious than awake, which says something about his table manners. The crank of the coffeehouse clock signals midnight. Patrons down final sips of chocolate, extinguish desk candles to conserve stealth, and shuffle toward the exit. You slip outside with them, pockets lighter from wagers, but heavier with intrigue. Through the window you glimpse the journalist scribbling, perhaps noting your own eager grin, an outsider already tangled in this nocturnal economy. Fog creeps off the Thames, softening lantern halos into luminous clouds. As you join the procession back to the starting rope, you feel that cordial nudge behind your eyelids. The night's hush invites you to half dream too, yet adrenaline pricks your senses. Can you observe the race without succumbing to your own somnambulist daze? Cobbles gleam damply, ready to test slipper soles. Lantern boys form a twinkling queue, and the bookmaker whispers last call odds. Mainstream fact twists back. Coffeehouses once earned the nickname penny universities, where a coin bought both drink and discourse. Tonight, 1 penny has purchased you admission to a lecture in dream anatomy, urban theatre, and the economy of hush. You inhale a lungful of cold, coal-tinged air, steady your boots on slick stone, and watch as candle hats are lit. Tiny flames flicker atop nightcaps, casting halos on closed lids. The Strand transforms into a runway of muted stars, guiding drowsy navigators. Soon, that silver dinner bell will ding again, turning gossip into spectacle and whispers into wages. For now, you tuck betting slip into glove, pull cloak tight, and align yourself beside a lamppost, silent, waiting. The stakes flutter on parchment like moth wings. The city holds its breath, and you, unlikely chronicler, brace to follow a parade of sleep through the wobbling heart of Georgian London. You slip into step beside the bespectacled physician you spotted in the coffeehouse, the one polishing Hippocrates' snuff box, and find yourself drafted into his midnight rounds. He claims he must observe somnambulist biomechanics for a forthcoming treatise, and you, still buzzing on nutmeg-laden Dream Glide, tag along like an unofficial lab assistant. Lantern boys drift ahead, casting rippling light on slick cobbles, while behind you, gamblers shuffle their ledgers, comparing last-minute odds before scribbling IOUs they pray their spouses never find. The doctor fishes a small brass caliper from his pocket, extends its arms, and measures the stride length of Sir Alonzo Smith, who shuffles past in billowing moon-patterned silk. Every few steps the physician hums approval, jotting figures with a quill stub on a parchment strip strapped to his forearm. Mainstream historical fact. Georgian medical journals genuinely debated whether controlled sleepwalking strengthened animal spirits, a term physicians used for the nervous system before electricity stole the metaphor. Pamphlets sold briskly, promising everything from improved digestion to cured lovesickness, if patients practiced nightly ambulation under expert supervision and naturally for an expert fee. Sir Alonzo drifts onward, candle hat flickering each time he exhales a soft, aristocratic snore. The doctor leans close to you and whispers about his newest invention, a somnus pedometer fashioned from a mousetrap spring and ivory beads. If attached to a slipper, It will tally nocturnal steps with a faint click. Ideal proof, he says, for wealthy clients who wish to document their unconscious workouts. Quirky tidbit. Rumor claims one heiress paid a footman to sleepwalk in her stead, strapping the device to his boot so she could boast of nightly marathons from the comfort of her chaise longue. Joke 1 flutters. Surely the first recorded case of step count fraud. Further along, you pass a narrow alley where a small crowd clusters around an apothecary's window. Inside sits a mannequin, wearing what looks like a knight's helmet lined with goose feathers. A sign proclaims electromagnetic dream helm, guides slumberers north by earthly currents. A clerk winds a key in its jaw, and sparks dance across iron studs, casting eerie green speckles on passers-by. Historians still argue whether such gadgets sprang from genuine curiosity or pure profit motive, but shoppers appear enthralled, pressing coins against the glass for down payments. The physician scoffs, though you notice he pockets a brochure when no one looks. Joke 2. Never trust a doctor whose curiosity jogs faster than his skepticism. Back on the main route, you shadow a plump haberdasher who hums a lullaby between soft wheezes. The doctor slides a thin mirror under the man's nose to observe condensation patterns, claiming exhalation arcs might predict directional drift. You crane your neck, catching the ghostly fog ring the haberdasher sends skyward. The doctor nods sagely, scribbles east-tilting vapor, likely via right, then nearly collides with a lamppost. You guide him aside, earning quiet thanks. Mainstream fact returns. By the late 1700s, London hospitals held public sleep demonstrations, where volunteer patients roamed padded corridors while surgeons timed pulse, respiration, and yes, exhalation trajectories, arguing sleepwalking revealed secret autonomic rhythms. Noise breaks the hush. A watchman's rattle clacks at the corner. Instinctively the crowd freezes, afraid the sharp crack might yank racers awake. To your relief, the sleepers merely adjust course, weaving around the disturbance like reeds in water. The physician notes the incident, musing that startling noises appear filtered by slumbering brains. Anecdotal evidence for his theory of selective sonic discretion. Quirky fringe tidbit. Another doctor proposed coating eardrums with beeswax salve before bed to block disruptive pitches, marketing kits with scented wax and silver applicators. The scheme failed when buyers realized melting wax ruined pillows, and trust in equal measure. Joke 3 whispers. Nothing says restful night like gluing your ears shut. Approaching St. Clement Danes, you spot a small bleacher erected against the churchyard wall, where 3 medical students wave coloured pennants. Whenever a sleepwalker glides past, they briskly swap flags, recording reaction times to shifting hues. They hail the physician. Apparently tonight doubles as inter-hospital data derby. He replies with a nod, yet mutters that colour tests are niddering nonsense, convinced olfactory cues trump visual stimuli in dream navigation. Historians still argue whether smell, sound, or muscle memory steered these midnight athletes. Letters traded between surgeons read like playground rivalries disguised in Latin footnotes. The strand widens into an echoing canyonesque straightaway. Oil lamps flicker overhead, their smoke mingling with faint river mist. The doctor consults a tiny sandglass, 90-second rotations to log each subject's pace. You assist, flipping the glass and calling turn whenever grains vanish. Together you track Lady Farnham's nephew gliding elegantly despite earlier sabotage. His feet barely scuff the cobbles, and not once does his candle hat drip wax. You suspect your quietest footstep bet may pay off, though you refrain from gloating. In these subdued races, silence equals sportsmanship. Past Temple Bar, the course narrows, where scaffolding crowds the pavement. The doctor panics. Obstructions risk shocking walkers awake and invalidating his data. He presses a lavender sachet into your hand, urging you to wave it beneath each competitor's nose as they pass, hoping aroma overrides sudden clamour. You comply, kneeling to present the scent like a night's offering. Most sleepers glide by unperturbed, though one young bookbinder sneezes thrice, veering into a stack of wooden planks yet miraculously staying asleep. Your lavender sachet survives, albeit lighter, its calming oils now part of viscid night air. The physician gleefully tallies, aroma rescue success, 8 of 9 cases. A sudden drizzle spots the street. dampening wigs and silencing horse hooves with a hiss. Lantern boys shield flames with cupped hands. Candle hats sputter but persist. Rain lifts tallow scent into the night, mixing with coal smoke and lavender to form an oddly comforting fog. You inhale, surprised at how soothing it is. Maybe the doctor's theories hold some weight after all. Finally, the Strand merges with Fleet Market Square, where a low dais draped in emerald cloth marks the finish. You and physician pause at the edge, ready to watch final tottering sprints, if one can call them such. He tucks his notes away, satisfied his treatise now brims with empirical proofs of nocturnal locomotion therapy. You, eyelids heavy from dream glide and lavender vapor, feel another lesson settling, even under flickering lamp shadows. Science and spectacle can somersault into each other, leaving a city tiptoeing behind. The drizzle fades, leaving cobbles slick as obsidian, and the Thames exhaling faint river breath that carries soot and salt in equal measure. You step back toward the official starting zone, revisiting the Strand stretch that now glows brighter than earlier, dressed in rows of lanterns hoisted on poles like patient fireflies forced to stand at attention. Each iron bracket is wrapped in damp cloth to muffle any clang, because tonight even metal has been sworn to hush. Candle boys weave between poles, trimming wicks so the flames burn low and steady, creating a corridor of warm halos. From above it might resemble a constellation fallen onto pavement, Georgian London imitating its own starlit ceiling. A footman you recognize from the coffeehouse, hat brim still dotted with chocolate crumbs, kneels to chalk a crisp white stripe across the stones. He measures precisely 9 feet from the rope that weaves ankle-high across the street, then chalks a second stripe. Buffer zone, he whispers, ensuring sleepwalkers won't trip on spectators' toes before their strides find rhythm. Mainstream historical fact: contemporary city bylaws required temporary permits for any public nocturnal gathering, yet records show magistrates often looked the other way for these races, amused that crowds could assemble without bawdy noise or drunken brawls. Rare serenity in an era infamous for rowdy mobs. 6 footmen now anchor the rope, 2 at each end and 2 in the middle, lying on their sides with eyes closed so thoroughly you wonder if they've dosed themselves with that poppy cordial. Their bodies form living posts, gloved hands holding rope loops slack until the bell. A watcher sprinkles sawdust around them to prevent slip. The damp wood shavings smell faintly of pine, a forest cameo in Stone City. Quirky tidbit surfaces, elite hosts sometimes imported entire barrels of sawdust from Norway scented with spruce resin, claiming the aroma lulled walkers into a north wind cadence, lengthening strides. Whether truth or marketing, tonight's pine notes lend the Strand a Scandinavian freshness. You drift to the lantern line's edge, where participants gather under guardians' care. Each competitor began sleep induction an hour earlier, inside hired sedan chairs curtained with velvet, where valets hummed lullabies or recited mortgage ledgers, whatever guaranteed drowsiness. Now they emerge, half supported by attendants who align their slippered feet against the chalk. Soft snuffling snores rise like cooing pigeons. Lady Farnham's nephew appears, wearing weighted satin slippers tipped with silver crescents. Rumour says the crescent's subtle drag prevents sudden pivots. Joke one elbow nudges. Designer sleepwear coming soon to a nightwear catalogue near you. Beside him, Sir Alonso's candle hat sports a protective parasol of oiled silk to guard flame from leftover drizzle. Another walker, an apothecary's wife, wears a quilted robe stitched with tiny lavender sachets, the aromas puffing with each breath like floral bellows. She clasps a silk cord tethered to her maid, who will shadow 1 pace behind to steer if she veers into shop windows. Historians still argue whether such tethers violated true somnambulist purity or merely constituted sensible safety harnesses. Skeptics wrote letters claiming any outside guidance tainted data. Gambling men, meanwhile, invested in discreet tugs to nudge odds. The officiant, a portly barrister sporting judicial wig even at midnight, stands behind a modest lectern carted from Lincoln's Inn. He clears his throat but produces only an airy whisper, mindful of the rule, no voice above soft chapel murmur. He lifts the silver dinner bell but waits, scanning the lineup with paternal concern. A lamplighter tiptoes forward to adjust one competitor's candle. It leans dangerously, wax drip poised to scorch an earlobe. Crisis averted, the lamplighter bows and retreats, his iron pole clicking once on stone. Several spectators wince at the sharp note, but no eyelids flutter among racers. Mainstream fact returns. Between 1786 and 1792, at least 4 medical dissertations defended in Edinburgh referenced these London races as anecdotal evidence that the sensorium might maintain locomotive function independently from higher reasoning. One thesis labeled the phenomenon ambulation by subconscious impetus, suggesting the spinal cord housed a secondary decision center, centuries before modern neuroscience credited spinal pattern generators. Tonight feels like a living footnote to those arguments, cobblestones doubling as peer review board. At last, the barrister tips the bell. It emits a single crystalline ding, almost a goblin coin dropped onto marble. Then silence floods back so fast it feels like fabric snapping taut. Rope loops slip from footman fingers, and like toy boats nudged by invisible tide, the sleepers drift forward. You find yourself holding breath, so does everyone else, lungs pausing in communal suspense. The only sounds are soft scuffs of slippers, faint glass clink where a candle trembles, and the distant lap of river water. Lady Farnham's nephew glides with uncanny grace, arms loosely outstretched. Weighted crescents do their job. His path is arrow straight, each step a whisper. Chalk dust puffs under his soles, yet he leaves the line perfectly untouched. Candlelight crowns him in waxy halo. A bookmaker scribbles madly, adjusting in race odds on parchment pinned to a walking stick. Joke 2 wonders if stock exchanges could function in similar hush. Imagine traders napping between bids. Not every entrant fares so elegantly. The plump merchant's embroidered guinea coins jangle faintly each stride, drawing narrowed eyes from purists. Halfway across buffer zone, he drifts sideways, shoulder nudging a lamppost. The knock rings a dull bong, but he doesn't wake. Instead he pivots, resuming forward as if the lamppost lent steering suggestion. Spectators release collective exhale. Crisis and comedy overlap like double exposure. A clerk quietly transfers a shilling to a rival side bet, lost on first collision. The apothecary's wife, tethered by silk cord, starts with timid shuffles but soon settles into smoother gait, lavender sachets bobbing in perfumed rhythm. Her maid mirrors steps like a dancer, shadowing lead partner, occasionally slackening line so judge can't call foul. Historians still argue whether such tandem systems constituted early occupational therapy or bourgeois spectacle disguised as scientific enterprise. Either way, tonight it provides soothing symmetry, almost balletic against the lantern glow. Halfway mile marker, chalk star painted earlier, comes into view. Lantern boys shift ahead to extend the corridor. One trips lantern toppling, glass shatters with brittle chime. Everyone inhales sharply. Miraculously, sleepers remain adrift, stirred no more than autumn leaves by distant carriage rumble. Quirky tidbit. Some physicians posited sleepwalkers' ears filter sudden high-frequency shocks better than low rumblings. Pamphlets promised ear-training gadgets to replicate the effect in insomniacs. Joke 3. Georgian self-help always 2 steps ahead, and asleep. The racers flow past smashed glass without slicing slippers, thanks to quick-thinking pages scattering sawdust. Lady Farnham's nephew still leads, candle steady, crescents glinting. Sir Alonso ambles behind, arms swaying like lazy pendulums, but his silk gown's train begins catching drizzle, dragging like damp foil. A valet inched along sidewalks with silver tongs, lifts excess fabric, earning silent applause. Improvised pit crew. You meanwhile march alongside, lantern shadows rippling across your cloak. The hush feels sacred now, as though language would snap the delicate web holding all snorers in motion. The Strand's windows reflect multiple flame lights, turning one procession into dozens. Sleepwalkers mirrored in glass, London multiplying its dreamers. Behind those panes, insomniacs clutch candles, witnessing more restful strides than any mattress pamphlet promised. The start zone fades behind. Lantern poles stand deserted. Rope curls inert. Footmen roll onto backs, snoring louder now that duty's done. Ahead, finished dyers, waits under emerald cloth. But for this moment, glossy cobbles stretch between hush and hush. You understand why Georgian London cherished these races. They transformed rowdy city streets into litmus strips of stillness, proved even chaos could tiptoe, and turned the unpredictable theatre of sleep into communal lullaby. Your mind drifts back to the moment, barely an hour earlier, when the competitors emerged from sedan chairs, like life-size dolls in velvet night attire, each costume a study in eccentric practicality. Picture yourself standing behind a brocade screen inside the Turk's Head parlour, while footmen shuffled in bundles of fabric, candles and curious contraptions. Lace cuffs brushed brass candlesticks, hat boxes rattled with hidden lead weights. The hush was so absolute you could hear starch creak. First came the nightcaps, towering cones of quilted silk designed to stay upright even when their wearers slumped in deepest REM. Some caps were stitched with tiny silver bells which, irony alert, were promptly stuffed with cotton lest they betray a single jingle. Others boasted embroidery of shepherd moons guiding drowsy sheep. One cap even sported a glowworm inside a mica window pane, its faint green pulse meant to act as a personal North Star. Joke one winks, the original nightlight wearable edition. Then the candle hats, shallow felt circuits affixed to a circlet, supporting a single tallow stub wrapped in gauze to catch drips. Mainstream historical fact: Georgian physicians truly believed a gentle flame above the brow promoted steady blood flow to the brain, preventing abrupt arousal. Think aromatherapy meets headlamp. Attendants snipped wicks to half-inch stumps, calculated to burn just shy of race length. No one wanted a blazing skull midway through Covent Garden. Quirky tidbit slips in. One fashionable gentleman requested a rose-scented beeswax taper, imported from Provence, insisting the perfume guided his subconscious toward poetic footwork. His valet accidentally used lavender candles instead, so tonight his dreams smell suspiciously like roast mutton. Weighted slippers took center stage next. Soft kidskin shoes with lead beads sewn into the toes to discourage sprinting spurts that might jar racers awake. Historians still argue whether these weights genuinely stabilized gait, or merely slowed contestants enough for gamblers to jot odds mid-stride. A cordwainer on site fine-tuned each pair, checking that drag felt like wading through honey, not treacle. Lady Farnham's nephew, Noble, tested his slippers by shuffling 3 silent laps around a Turkish rug. The only noise was sleeve satin whispering secrets. Overnight robes followed, brocades, quilted cottons, and one startling peacock blue banyan lined with ermine. The doctor insisted looser sleeves allowed unconscious arm swing, while tighter cuffs risked truncating dream momentum. Attendants discreetly pinned hems to prevent accidental public displays should a gust lift fabric. Joke 2 tiptoes, Georgian modesty, protecting reputations even when owners are too asleep to care. Finishing touches appeared from exotic pouches, sachets of dried linden for calm breathing, silk cords dusted with camphor to deter street odors, and in one case, a pocket watch rigged to chime at precisely 5-minute intervals, audible only to a racer wearing waxed canvas ear trumpet aimed back at his own head. Theory held that rhythmic tings might keep him pacing like a metronome. You watched an attendant test it. Faint ding barely audible. The sleeper twitched a smile, testament to Pavlovian rehearsal. Out on the Strand, these fashion statements unfurled under lantern glow like a mobile haberdashery parade. Candle hats cast halos that slid across velvet shoulders. Weighted slippers brushed sawdust without a scrape. Trailing ribbons fluttered in whispering dialogue with the river's breeze. Mainstream fact surfaces. Late 18th century Londoners prized novelty accessories, magnetic quack devices, mirrored coiffure ornaments, even artificial lightning rods for umbrellas, so sleepwalking gear fit the zeitgeist as snugly as a powdered wig. Your senses recorded everything. The hush of quilting, rubbing quilting. The faint crackle when a glowworm shifted in its mica window. The pop of beeswax bubble bursting on a hat brim. Spectators pressed closer, drawn by visual theatre yet still tiptoeing to keep the spell intact. One street urchin gasped at Sir Alonso's silk gown peppered with star-shaped cutouts backed by silver foil. As he drifted, the foil caught lantern light, making him look like a drifting constellation come to Earth. Joke 3 nods. Who needs astronomy lessons when you've got a somnambulist planetarium wobbling down Fleet Street? Between racers, attendants shuffled with emergency kits. Lavender water spritzers in glass atomizers, spare tallow tapers pre-trimmed. even collapsible fans to waft away rogue smoke. A valet whispered to another that last month a competitor's candle guttered and smoked his powdered wig, producing a stench so foul it woke half the field. They agreed to snuff any flame showing even a hint of rebellion. Historians still argue whether such meticulous stagecraft cheapened the natural scientific value of the races, or whether safety concerns overruled purist ideals. After all, nothing halts data collection quite like spontaneous hair torch. You recall one delightful sight: an apothecary's apprentice, fastening a tiny silk banner to his sleepwalking mistress's back. Embroidered on it, "Do not wake, philosophical research in progress." Spectators chuckled silently, some bowing as if to royalty. Yet the apprentice explained this sign deters meddling watchmen who might otherwise prod her awake for curfew violation. Quirky tidbit: certain neighborhoods issued somnambulist passes, brass tokens strung around necks granting immunity from night watch fines, provided wearer remained convincingly asleep. Counterfeiters quickly produced fakes, launching a miniature black market where thieves feigned slumber to case shops. Georgian London, never dull, even unconscious. As the lineup finalized, you felt collective attention condense around attire. Each fringe, stitch and candle hinting at stories. Wagers disguised as lace color, medical theories stitched into sleeve length, and social hierarchies glowing plain as beeswax halos. Under that hush, clothing spoke volumes. Free-spending nobles flaunted ermine cuffs, middle-class clerks favored practical cotton. The apothecary's wife's lavender-stuffed robe hinted at folk belief meeting fashionable science. Finally, when the silver bell chimed and the rope dropped, attire transformed from spectacle to strategy. Weighted slippers moderated steps. Candle hats provided both light and lighthouse. Scented satchels lulled senses into stable dreamscapes. You tracked how these velvet-wrapped theories played out. Lady Farnham's nephew, gliding smoothly. Score 1 for crescent weights. Sir Alonso's parasol keeping flame alive. Point for oiled silk. And the lavender-laden robe producing the evening's most aromatic breeze. As you follow racers deeper into the night, you realize one truth. In Georgian London, even pajamas become laboratories, and fashion is never merely decorative. It's a hypothesis stitched in satin, a wager hemmed in lead beads, a lullaby sung in seams. The Strand glitters with these experiments, quiet fireworks of fabric, and you, lantern light glancing off your own cloak, bear witness to how mankind dresses, not just to impress, but to dream, to gamble, and to stay wondrously asleep on its feet. The hush of velvet and beeswax soon gives way to a subtler rhythm. Coins clicking, quills scratching, lungs holding breath, as the betting frenzy kicks into its clandestine stride. You angle toward a narrow alcove near Middle Temple Gate, where bookmakers set up a makeshift counting house behind a draped sedan chair. Lanterns wrapped in smoked glass shades give off a dim violet glow, perfect for reading odds without drawing watchmen. A mulberry waistcoated bookie you met earlier perches atop a folding stool, abacus beads flicking like tiny metronomes, while he murmurs numbers that tiptoe across the night. Stacks of vellum chits flutter on a trestle table. Each scrap bears spidery shorthand. Smith candle extinguished before Swithin Lane, 7-2, or Farnham nephew to circle lamppost thrice, 5-1. Side pools bloom faster than candle drips, longest continuous snore, most elegant slipper pivot, first slipper skid on horse manure. Joke 1 slides in, who needs horse racing when you can gamble on dignified dozing? A well-heeled gentleman in plum silk flicks open a pocket spyglass. Rather than watch racers, he trains the lens on the abacus, gauging bead velocity to infer insider trends. Mainstream historical fact: gambling houses in 1780s London introduced early touts who sold whispered tips about pugilist fatigue or racehorse coughs. Sleepwalking contests merely added fresh fodder for such covert commerce. The plum silk gent scribbles notes, then slips a guinea onto apothecary's wife trips, but continues unconscious. Odds 9-1. You glance down the course where she sways gracefully, lavender sachets pulsing in time with her breath. Risky wager or prophetic hunch? Only cobbles know. Bookmakers employ runners, barefoot urchins carrying wax-sealed odds sheets through the crowd. One slips you a parchment smelling of ink and treacle, updated line lists, Lady Farnham's nephew at even money for quietest footstep. Your earlier copper bet suddenly looks shrewd. You palm another coin for a long shot, Sir Alonso's parasol catching gust and steering him off course 12-1. Joke 2. Investing in wind power long before Victorian turbines. Across the alley, a lady in peacock feathers whispers to her maid, who nods and disappears into the shadows, returning moments later with a tiny pouch of sand. She sprinkles a clandestine dusting near the chalk lane, nothing that would trip a walker, but enough to produce a faint crunch. Historians still argue whether crowd interference skewed medical observations, or if physicians quietly colluded, valuing spectacle over pure data. Either way, tonight the line between science and sabotage is thinner than a wig ribbon. The physician with Hippocrates' snuff-box appears, adjusting spectacles fogged by river mist. He requests the bookie log side wages for total heartbeats per minute. He intends to check pulses at finish and settle debts in the interest of physiology, of course. Quirky tidbit. Some physicians wagered professional reputations, predicting which bodily humours would be most balanced after competitive sleepwalking. A wrong bet might tarnish a practice more than a misdiagnosed cold. A cravat-clad poet jots metaphors beside the odds list, comparing candle hats to metaphysical fireflies courting shadows. Bookie scowls. Poetic license pays no vig, but allows the scribbler to trade verse for 3p credit. Joke 3 muses. Futures market for iambic pentameter shares. Suddenly, a hush ripple sweeps the corridor. Word arrives that the merchant with jingling guinea embroidery has veered into a hay cart near Essex Street, scattering haycocks like feathery fireworks, yet remaining asleep. Odds-on merchant collisions settle in a whoosh. Some win, others groan but stay disciplined, voices never rising above library hush. You feel adrenaline tremor under your calm exterior. Every slip or stride translates into coin, reputation, and the city's whispered collective heartbeat. Bookmakers slide abacus beads again, as Lady Farnham's nephew passes the 3/4 post with slipper soles still squeak-free. New line, any audible scrape before Temple Bar, 3-1. You debate doubling down, but remember lavender fog's soporific tug on your wallet. Farther ahead, Sir Alonso's parasol wobbles in a sly breeze funneling down a side lane. Candle flame gutters, parasol snaps, but gown train catches and stabilizes the tilt. Odds fluctuate like a heartbeat skipping on hot cocoa. Mainstream fact appears. In 1790, London magistrates outlawed wagering on foot races held after curfew, citing nightly nuisance. Records show fines rarely collected as officials themselves held secret stakes through intermediaries. Tonight's scene feels like proof. You notice a constable's hat bobbing discreetly among gamblers, its wearer trading half-pence slip for odds on lavender lady sneezes thrice. Last-minute wagers flood in as runners relay updates. Apothecary's wife grazed lamppost but still vertical. Glowworm hat dimming, odds shorten on early candle failure. Ink quills squeak, sealing wax sizzles, and the abacus sings its quiet staccato. Somehow, despite frenzied arithmetic, the volume never breaches the sacred whisper ceiling, an orchestra of greed dampened by velvet etiquette. As you pocket your final wager, the physician slips parchment into his coat marked experimental gains, a ledger both scientific and financial. You realize that in these moonlit lanes, medicine mortgages itself to chance. Chance to fashion, fashion to rumor, rumor to profit. Betting slips flutter like moths around dim lanterns, and you stand in that soft glow feeling the city's pulse, steady, sly, half dreaming of silver. Lantern boys signal approach of racers near Fleet Market. Bookmakers slam shut ledgers, runners scatter, and the whisper tide ebbs. Coins vanish into pockets, quills recapped, abacus stilled. The paper rustle is replaced by slipper brush, candle hiss, and the evergreen hush that cradles Georgian London's favourite unconscious athletes. You slip out of the alcove, odds sheets tucked in glove, ready to witness payoffs at the emerald-draped dais. Whatever wallets win or lose, the night has already folded gambling, medicine, and moonlit pageantry into a single hush-wrapped bundle, and you, tiptoe spectator, have wagered more than copper. You've staked your wakefulness on seeing the outcome. You slip alongside the procession just as it noses into Covent Garden Piazza, that grand Italianate square normally alive with daylit cries of costermongers and cabbage carts. At this hour it lies half-transformed, stalls shuttered, produce stacked like dozing soldiers, and the soft glow of oil lanterns making pyramids of carrots look almost gilt. In the centre of it all lumbers tonight's unlikeliest star, Mr. Bartholomew Haddington, King's Bench barrister by daylight and dedicated moonlit somnambulist by night. His snores roll from his throat in leisurely 7-second intervals, a basso continuo that sets the rhythm for the pack. Candle hat steady, wig slightly askew, he drifts forward with arms bent at 90 degrees as though embracing an invisible lectern to deliver closing arguments in his dreams. Mainstream historical fact: Covent Garden's produce markets often opened well before dawn, so porters could haul crates from river barges. Thus early morning sleepwalking races occasionally collided with actual commerce, forcing organizers to adjust routes or bribe porters with hot coffee to pause unloading. Tonight luck smiles, barrows stand idle, porters still abed, leaving neat aisles for slippered feet. You match Haddington's pace, counting 3 plodding steps per snore. Joke 1 nudges. Who knew legal briefs could double as lullabies potent enough to keep their authors unconscious on the job? The barrister's nightshirt bears embroidered brass scales of justice, each pan stitched with glow-in-the-dark thread. When a lantern flickers over him, the scales flash luminescent green, commerce and comedy in one drowsy package. A page boy trailing him carries a parchment labelled Patience Writs, ready to document any spoken dream monologue that might later become courtroom legend. Quirky tidbit: last month Haddington allegedly recited an entire tort statute while asleep, prompting a rival solicitor to challenge its admissibility as nocturnal hearsay. Gamblers now hold micro-wagers on whether he'll utter coherent Latin tonight. You watch as he negotiates stacked apple crates. Weighted slippers scrape sawdust but never quite lift. Instead they shuffle aside with centimetre precision, apples undisturbed. Historians still argue whether experienced sleepwalkers develop an echoic map of frequent paths, or if subconscious hearing cues like your own soft footfalls guide them around obstacles. The physician, shadowing inches behind, claims future treatise evidence each time. Haddington skirts danger. You suspect luck but swallow comment. Hush remains king. A gust pushes drizzle through the arcade, and candle flame gutters. The barrister's snore hitchhikes on the breeze, skipping a beat before resuming fortified. A vendor's dog, tied near a cauliflower mound, perks ears at the unorthodox parade. It emits one half-hearted bark, promptly shushed by a nearby bookmaker who tosses a sausage scrap as hush money. Joke 2. First recorded case of insider trading in pork futures. Out of nowhere, a rogue duck escaped from a poulterer's crate, waddles into the course, quacking indignantly. It flaps against Lady Farnham's nephew's ankle, but he, in deeper rerem, merely redirects with flawless sidestep, candle unwavering. The duck squawks louder, trailing feathers but no alarm. Spectators compress laughter into silent spasms. Haddington, still snoring, approaches feather zone. You tense, imagining startled barrister awakening mid-piazza. Instead he raises foot a hair higher, perhaps detecting downdraft, and clears flustered duck. Crowd exhales relief. Mainstream fact again. Period medical treatises cautioned that sudden avian intrusions could precipitate fatal palpitations in somnambulists. Organizers sometimes hired boys to scare pigeons from the route hours in advance. Tonight's oversight nearly voids that clause, yet dream lawyer prevails. The physician scribbles avian avoidance reflex, subject H, remarkable. Rounding the arcade's northeast column, Haddington encounters a shallow puddle reflecting lantern light like tarnished silver. He steps square into it. Water ripples, but he remains upright. Candle glow halos rising steam as slipper soles emerge with soft squelch. Quirky tidbit: some racers coat slippers in beeswax to repel puddles. Others insist moisture cools feet, prolonging REM. Historians still argue whether tactile cold awakens or stabilizes sleepers. Tonight seems case for latter. Halfway across the square, Haddington's snore deepens, crescendo resembling distant foghorn. It draws curious stares from two watchmen patrolling periphery. They pause, puzzled, but recall somnambulist pass tokens, spying one pinned to his sash. They tip hats and move on. Joke 3. Only in Georgian London can you snore your way past law enforcement with paperwork pre-approved. You notice the barrister's candle drooping, wax softening under long burn. An attendant flits forward, swaps old taper for fresh stub with surgeon-like precision, flame never extinguished. Service so seamless, Haddington doesn't miss a snore beat. Gamblers adjust odds on mid-race recandle success. 1-1 now. A spectator slips the attendant a tuppence tip. Courtesy transcends consciousness. At the piazza's exit, a row of vegetable crates forms impromptu barrier remnant from earlier sabotage attempt. 2 pages crouch, hurriedly sliding crates aside, but a single parsnip topples free, rolling across stone. Destiny aims it at Haddington's weighted toe. You lean forward, breath frozen as slipper meets root. Instead of tripping, his foot nudges parsnip into perfect spin, redirecting it into gutter like croquet shot. Historians still argue whether muscle memory turned obstacle into tool, or if sheer coincidence saved both dignity and data sheets. Either way, bookmaker notes parsnip deflection, payout yes. Covent Garden falls behind. Drizzle stops. The route narrows into dim Maiden Lane. Haddington's snore echoes against brick facades, a lullaby for insomniac rats nibbling crusts. The physician checks pulse again, still steady, and beams. You reflect that witnessing first staggering laps reveals brand new sports metrics: snore cadence, candle stability, parsnip control. Georgian London might be mad, but its madness is methodical. As you match pace with the barrister's half-dreaming shuffle, you notice your own eyelids heft at Dreamglide cordial's weight. A seductive thought. What if you too waded into soft oblivion mid-stride? Yet crowd energy anchors you awake. Bookmakers calculating, attendants scurrying, watchers clenching breath. You stride on, silent accomplice to history's most drowsy marathon. Ahead flickers the lantern line toward Somerset House, where gentle applause, more rustle than clap, waits for those who finish still asleep. Haddington will reach it soon, guarded by snore, candle, and legalese embroidered across chest. His wobble steadies, almost stately. You sense law courts tomorrow will buzz about his promenade. Maybe transcripts of dream statutes will circulate. For now, he is simply a shadow sliding through moonlit produce, proof that the unconscious can navigate both puddles and parsnips with improbable finesse. You ease into his draft. Lantern glow warming chilled cheeks while Covent Garden's vegetables return to their silent vigil. The city's night pulse quickens and calms simultaneously. Coins rattle, candles float, snores underscore, and you continue, documenting the improbable choreography that only Georgian hush could compose. Somerset House approaches, and with it the densest cluster of spectators, ladies balancing quizzing glasses, merchants in patched cloaks, and even a trio of powdered footmen taking illicit break. Yet each person obeys a code of silence, so intricate it could headline an etiquette manual. You glide into the throng and feel the hush thicken as though sound itself has been quilted. Paper fans flutter instead of hands, handkerchief corners wave like white moths. A gentleman in bottle green frock coat snaps open his pocket watch, but the click is muffled by a silk glove pulled on expressly for that purpose. Mainstream historical fact. Georgian assemblies prized polite noise, the measured rustle of silk, the whisper of fans. Rowdy applause belonged to pleasure gardens, not respectable streets. When sleepwalking races emerged, society fused those norms with medical warnings against sudden arousal. Thus an unwritten rulebook bloomed. No clapping palms, no heel taps, certainly no bravos. Fans became surrogate applause, and silk mitts doubled as stealth buffers for every gesture. Along the balustrade, a vendor peddles candied almonds from a felt-lined tray, so the nuts don't rattle. His whispered sales pitch, crunch discreetly, taste sweet victory. Buyers tiptoe away nibbling one almond at a time, tongues cushioning sugar crackle. Joke 1 tiptoes into your thoughts. Londoners just invented ASMR snacking 2 centuries early. 2 matrons unfurl lace parasols, not for rain but to muffle their delighted gasps. Each parasol has a muslin ruffle sewn between spokes, softening fabric snap. They angle canopies downward, forming portable whisper tents from which they can titter behind gloved knuckles, while Sir Alonso's silk parasol, now drooping with drizzle, earns sympathetic winces. Quirky tidbit. Fashionable milliners briefly marketed somnambulist spectator parasols, guaranteeing silent twirl thanks to hidden springs and goose-down edging. Within months, the fad reached Bath promenades, proof hush can be haute couture. As races near, you notice white-gloved stewards stationed every 10 yards, each holding a slender wand tipped with swan feathers. Their job? To intercept two enthusiastic onlookers by brushing a feather across the offender's sleeve, a tactile reminder to tone it down. One steward gently feathers a lad's arm after he gasps too loudly at Lady Farnham's nephew's glide. Historians still argue whether such policing of manners represented genuine medical precaution or social control masquerading as health advice. Either way, the lad blushes, clutches his cap to chest, and mouths an apology into the hush. You position yourself beside an elderly clergyman who nods approval at the etiquette ballet. He explains, breath barely stirring air, that St. Paul's had preached caution. Waking a sleepwalker might fracture the fragile membrane betwixt body and soul. Therefore he endorses feather policing as moral duty. You note his cassock pocket bulges with betting slips, apparently morality multitasks. Joke 2 whispers, "Blessed are the meek, as long as their wagers pay 10 to 1. Someone drops a guinea. It spins on stone, a bright brass comma in the silence. Instantly 5 parasols pivot to hide the coin's pirouette, muffling clang under silk. A steward darts, scoops it with gloved hand, and deposits it in a muff belonging to its crimson-cheeked owner. Applause pulses through fans, flutter like discreet wings. Now the soft clap ritual begins. A herald voice, scarcely louder than turning page, announces that Lady Farnham's nephew has passed the marble lions. At once spectators raise gloved hands and tap fingertips together. Barely audible pitter that sounds like summer rain on distant roof slates. The hush remains intact while delivering communal encouragement. Mainstream fact: Diaries of the Duchess of Devonshire describe the gentle finger concert as the only proper way to hail sleepers. She claimed the sound frequency mimicked lullaby heartbeats, though modern acousticians would likely call it fancy wishful thinking. As the nephew glides by, you join the finger tap chorus, surprised how satisfying it feels to applaud without noise. Candlelight catches crescents on his slippers. Your earlier bet on quiet steps seems ever more secure. Behind him, Mr. Haddington's bass snores reverberate. The crowd responds with a deeper wave of finger taps, slower tempo matching his sonic footprint. Quirky tidbit: some enthusiasts practiced snore harmony, synchronizing finger beats to each racer's unique cadence, turning the route into giant percussive lullaby. Further along, a sedan chair footman with artistic lean paints quick sketches on charcoal paper, gifting them to patrons for a penny. His strokes so light they barely whisper, preserving sanctity. One sketch shows Sir Alonso mid-shuffle, parasol tattered yet flame resilient, a testament to unconscious perseverance. Joke 3: if the art market crashes, at least charcoal squeaks won't wake investors. A sudden challenge arises. Rumble of carriage wheels on nearby street. Spectators collectively lift parasols, fans, and even coat hems, forming makeshift sound shields. Wheel clatter diffuses, hitting soft fabrics before ricocheting to sleepers. Candle flames quiver but hold. Stewards exchange relieved nods. Etiquette saved the experiment. You spy the physician again, hand hovering over Hippocrates' snuff box like a conductor waiting to cue strings. He times pulse on apothecary's wife, fingertips to wrist as she floats past. His lips twitch in satisfied curve. He then holds one feathered wand himself. Scientific rigor meets social rulebook. Historians still argue if such dual roles blurred objectivity, but tonight he looks content as both scholar and usher. Approaching Somerset House facade. Finished dyers visible. Etiquette intensifies. A row of debutantes kneels, arranging skirts to muffle final cobble irregularities. Oil lamps on posts are shuttered with tinted glass, lowering glare. Bright light risks startling dreamers. Street ices lightly under damp chill. Stable boys sprinkle sand in socked feet to deaden crunch. The hush now feels like velvet ceiling pressing against starless sky. You sense your own heartbeat louder than crowd, though physician assures such internal drum won't disturb racers. Lady Farnham's nephew glides beyond lion statues toward emerald-draped dais. Finger taps swell to gentle patter storm. Behind him, Sir Alonso staggers, parasol shredded but candle triumphant. The barrister follows, snores modulating higher. Crowd responds with deeper fingerbeat to shepherd him home. It's a symphony of nearly nothing, yet emotion swells. You feel gooseflesh despite cloak, the power of collective near silence. As first slipper touches finish mat, an attendant strikes a triangle once inky chime, coaxes closure without shock. Crowd finally exhales. Fans close with downy sighs, gloves drop to sides. Racers kept sleeping, spectators kept manners, and etiquette proved sturdy scaffolding for this nocturnal marvel. You linger, breathing in hush's afterglow, aware that not waking others required waking a new awareness within yourself, listening to candle pops, silk rustles, human heartbeats. Georgian London taught you quiet can be choreographed, reverent and playful at once, a lullaby written in gestures rather than notes. And as stewards guide sleepers toward prize days, you ready to follow, curious how awards are given without trumpets or cheers, only the soft music of restrained delight. Lanterns dim to a sleepy amber while attendants usher the still dozing racers behind a velvet screen for pulse checks and slipper unlacing. You linger near Somerset House's colonnade where a knot of physicians materializes like moths around lingering candle smoke. Their black frock coats absorb lantern glow and their periwigs quiver in the breeze as they launch into a scholarly quarrel hushed only by decorum, not by passion. You edge closer, ears pricked. This is where theory meets tallow. Dr. Percival, he of the Hippocrates snuff box, unfurls his parchment roll, declaring in a whisper that tonight conclusively proves olfactory guidance, since every candle produced a faint plume drifting forward, gently tickling slumberers' nostrils and coaxing them ahead like invisible rains. Mainstream historical fact. 18th century treatises indeed proposed that subtle scents, whether candle smoke, lavender oil or roasted coffee, could steer sleepwalkers through nasal magnetism, a term as fanciful as it was untested. Dr. Rotham, sporting a turquoise waistcoat and a brow permanently furrowed, counters that candle smoke cannot be primary guide because breeze direction changed thrice, yet Sir Alonso's trajectory stayed true. Instead, Rotham proposes somatic memory of cobble gradients, fancy talk for feet remembering lumps in the road. He produces a lead plumb bob, lets it swing, and insists the subconscious senses micro-tilts. Joke one leans over. Georgian pedometer wars escalate to cobble feng shui. A younger surgeon, Miss Ames, one of London's few female anatomists, wielding quills sharper than lancets, challenges both men. She cites her own diary of a chimney sweep's son, who sleepwalked inside windowless attics, guided neither by smoke nor slopes. We must consider inner ear fluid, she whispers, tapping an ivory sketch of cochlear canals. Rotham sniff-laughs but scribbles note. Percival sputters about pagan humours. Historians still argue whether Ames's vestibular hypothesis anticipated modern balance science or merely repurposed seasickness lore. To test theories, the trio recruits you as neutral witness. Percival lights a fresh tallow candle, holds it before Lady Farnham's nephew, still asleep on a chaise, allowing smoke to curl toward his face. Ames gently tilts the chaise by slipping a folded blanket beneath one leg. Rotham marks cobble impressions on wax tablets for later measurement. Everyone counts heartbeats in whispered unison. 1, 2, 3, nothing. The nephew snores, unfazed. Percival frowns. Ames smirks. Rotham shrugs like a disgruntled tutor. To salvage dignity, Percival unveils a quirky tidbit. Coloured smoke pellets imported from Bologna, infused with frankincense and copper salts. Observe azure vapour. It shall invigorate rightward impulse, he insists. He ignites a pellet. Blue mist snakes into the air, smelling of church choir and seaside pennies. The nephew twitches, index finger curls, but otherwise remains still. Joke 2 wafts in. Perhaps he dreamed of smacking Percival with a scented hymn book. A chalkboard balanced on 2 violin cases becomes impromptu forum. Rotham sketches sine wave cobble map. Percy draws a nose with arrows. Ames diagrams semicircular canals like seashell spirals. Passing medical students submit field notes. One claims Sir Alonso pivoted exactly when candle wax dripped. Another insists the barrister's snore pitch rose half a tone near Limekiln odour. The debate grows so animated that stewards brandish feather wands to hush them. Irony, so thick it could fuel a lantern. Mainstream fact glides back in. In 1788, the Royal College of Physicians refused sponsorship for a large-scale sleepwalking study, citing insufficient reproducibility after public races showed conflicting results nightly. Some critics suspected bookmakers manipulated conditions, extra breezes, shifted cobbles to keep theories inconclusive and odds lucrative. Tonight's fracas seems living echo. Science jostles pockets stuffed with betting slips. Ames retrieves a hollow glass sphere filled with turpentine vapor. She wafts it under the apothecary's wife's nose. The sleeper's head tilts away, lavender sachets rustling like tiny protest flags. Aversion reflex, Ames notes. Olfactory stimulus matters, negative cues steer, not positive. Percival retorts that her lavender robe already biased nostrils, while Rotham mutters about gradient interference. They might have escalated to loud voices had the steward not tickled their elbows with feather quills, prompting sheepish smiles and renewed whispers. On the sidelines, spectators lean in, delighted by scholastic theatre. A printer's apprentice begins copying chalkboard disputes onto scrap paper, planning a pamphlet titled The Tallow Controversy, Candle Smoke or Cobble Slope. Joke 3 whispers, sensational science sells when you promise it can rearrange someone's furniture or their dreams. Suddenly, a soft commotion. Sir Alonso, still asleep, begins drifting off the chaise toward a servant's staircase. Parasol shredded but candle miraculously alight. Physicians freeze. Perfect test subject free range. Percival hustles alongside, holding candle smoke near his nose. Ames tilts a loose board under his slipper. Rotham scrapes cobble impression. Sir Alonso ignores smoke plume, steps over tilted plank but swerves when a watchman's lantern casts sudden glare across his eyes. He adjusts course without waking, descending 3 steps before attendants corral him. New variable introduced, light. Ames smirks triumphantly, citing phototropic subconscious. Percival counters light. Percival counters light only revealed board tilt. Historians still argue whether visual cues penetrate sleepwalking minds. Diaries describe sleepers avoiding fireplaces and open windows despite closed eyes. Perhaps lids crack slightly, perhaps muscle memory maps heat. Tonight provides no consensus, just more fodder for humming presses. The Doctor trio agrees to disagree, drafting a joint letter to the Analytical Review, proposing further races with controlled light, scent and cobble uniformity, plus modest funding. They ask you to sign as witness. Your pen glides across parchment, adding objective observer beside your name. You realize Georgian science embraces spectacle. Experiments are public, variables chaotic, conclusions pending wagers. Yet progress glimmers between candle drips and lavender gusts. Mid-debate, a page announces prize ceremony imminent. Physicians tuck chalkboards, pocket smoke pellets, and follow crowds toward emerald-draped dyers. As you step away, faint blue vapor swirls in lantern glow, disappearing into night like unresolved hypothesis. Somewhere behind, Ames pockets her cochlear diagram, future proof that even when theories clash in whispers, curiosity strides on fearless, half asleep, but eyes half open in anticipation of dawn. The prize diet still looms ahead, but the course now veers into the tangle of narrow lanes behind St Mary Le Strand, a maze where London's usual nighttime hazards refuse to honour sleep science etiquette. You trail the racers into a dim cut-through called Griffin's Yard, barely wide enough for 2 sedan chairs to pass, and tonight both happen to be parked nose to nose like gossiping beetles. Their bearers, wrapped in capes against the chill, lean on poles exchanging wagers. They see the candle-hatted procession coming and scramble to lift their conveyances, but the sleepers are already upon them. Lady Farnham's nephew glides first, One bearer panics and tilts his chair sideways, creating a brief archway of lacquered wood and velvet curtains. The nephew slips beneath as if rehearsed, silver crescents whispering over cobbles. You duck after him, heart thumping, realizing a sedan chair just achieved its life's ambition of doubling as triumphal archway. Joke 1 flickers, Georgian traffic calming, courtesy of unconscious pedestrians. Sir Alonso approaches next, parasol ragged, candle stub gutters low. A second bearer attempts similar lift, but the chair's hinge sticks. He grunts too loud. Sir Alonso's head twitches, snore cracks mid-note, yet he doesn't wake. Instead he sidesteps with dreamy aplomb, gown brushing, chair door like curtain stage wing, and resumes straight line. Mainstream historical fact: London sedan chair licenses required bearers to yield to foot traffic, but no clause mentions sleepwalkers. Tonight's improvisation sets legal precedent, no solicitor envisioned. No sooner has the procession cleared sedan chairs than squeals erupt from a side alley. A trio of porkers escaped from Fleet Market butcher pens, charge into path, hooves skittering on wet stone. The apothecary's wife, tethered by silk cord, shuffles directly toward the lead pig, lavender sachets bobbing. Spectators freeze, mindful that boorish squeals equal sonic sabotage. Her maid tightens cord, angles her left. The pig darts right, crisis averted. Quirky tidbit: Georgian pamphleteers insisted bacon fat rubbed on slippers deterred pigs. Skeptics called it culinary delusion. Judging by tonight, silk cords work just fine. A smaller pig collides with Mr. Haddington's weighted slipper, prompting comic pirouette. Pig squeals, barrister swivels, yet continues snoring basso. The physician scribbles, animal interference fails to disrupt somnambulist momentum, possible proprioceptive override. Historians still argue whether such collisions prove sleepers navigate by inner compass or enjoy dumb luck thick as lard. Further on, the lane bends toward Milford Stairs, where watchmen blow hourly whistles to mark shifts. You sense impending acoustic ambush. Sure enough, a single shrill trill pierces haze. Candle flames shiver. Sir Alonso's brow creases. Lady Farnham's nephew sways. You clench fists, willing them to stay adrift. By stroke of fortune, a gust of coal smoke from nearby bake oven rolls in, muffling resonance. Sleepers straighten like cut strings reknotted. Joke 2 exhales. When in doubt, trust London smog to double as earmuff. Watchmen, finally noticing candle hats, clap hands to mouths. Eyes wide, one removes cap in apology. They cease whistles, opting to ding truncheons lightly against knees for the remaining hour, a compromise between duty and decorum. Mainstream fact: nightly watch signals were meant to deter thieves, but diaries record householders complaining louder about whistles than burglars. Tonight, thieves could filch the Bank of England undisturbed. The street widens again, but new peril lurks. Rainwater channels carved across cobbles for drainage. Narrow grooves catch slipper toes. Last month, a grocer's apprentice face planted into puddle, ending with 2 teeth in physician's pocket. Tonight, organisers laid woolen rugs over trenches, but drizzle has sodden them into spongy ridges. Lady Farnham's nephew coasts, crescents kissing damp wool without snag. His candlelight glitters off puddles like migrating fireflies. Sir Alonso, gown soaked at hem, meets rug edge and skids. Attendants lunge, but he recovers, arms rowing invisible oars until balance returns. Joke 3. Unconscious sculling. Cambridge crew recruiters take notes. Past Temple Church. A sudden clang echoes. Iron pot dropped by scullery maid, emptying slops. Sound ricochets along alley like musket shot. Sleepers flinch collectively. Apothecary's wife emits tiny whimper but stays under. Spectators gasp, fold fans over mouths. A steward sprints to maid, slips coin into her palm, presses finger to lips. She nods, retreats indoors, pot abandoned like spent cannon. You notice starlight dimming. Coal smoke thickens, and low fog creeps from river. Visibility shrinks. Lantern boys scramble ahead, raising poles, but reduced contrast hides stray obstacles. A lamplighter unwittingly left ladder across curb. Haddington's toe nudges rung, ladder trembles. He sidesteps, continuing snore fugue. Ladder crashes onto straw bale, muffled, good fortune again. Historians still argue whether cities' clutter inadvertently trained racers through nightly exposures, giving them sixth sense for hazards. Approaching Thavies Inn, route kinks through timber scaffold erected for roof repairs. Organisers draped tar cloth to prevent snagging, but flapping corners now billow in breeze. Cloth lashes Sir Alonso's candle, extinguishing flame. Gasps all round. Parasol already useless. He now navigates dark. Percival hustles with tinderbox, but Rotham restrains him. Observe innate orientation sans luminance, he whispers. They watch as Sir Alonso feels through gloom, gown whispering scaffold planks. Miraculously, he emerges, flame relit by guardian page farther along. Physicians scribble opposing interpretations. Gamblers note new category for extinguish relight interval. Last hazard looms, a horse trough overflowing from rain. Reflection shows candle halos dancing like ghost coins. The apothecary's wife heads straight for water. Maid tugs cord too late. Yet Walker pauses a foot shy, dips slipper toe, then pivots delicately around rim, trailing lavender perfume over ripples. Maid exhales audible thanks. Watchers press gloved fingers in silent cheer. With hazards behind them, racers enter wide openness of Fleet Street again. Finished dais but a lantern-lit arrow away. You, lantern glow swirling, feel heartbeat sync with hush rhythm. Street dangers sidestepped through mix of luck, lavender, and luminous etiquette. Joke 4 bonus. Perhaps the unconscious reads Lonely Planet London Hazards Guide before nodding off. Lantern boys part like curtains, revealing emerald cloth where prizes await. You jog ahead, eager to see who claims silver chamber pot for quietest stride, who earns snuff box for longest snore. But another thought twines through fatigue. Nightly perils once meant thieves, fire or fever. Tonight, city turns those perils playful and instructive. Hazards become hurdles in dream-run proving grounds, teaching both sleepers and watchers to tune senses keener than logic, to listen for candle drips, to sway around pigs like polite waltzers. And you, wide awake yet lulled by hush, step onto Fleet pavement feeling strangely steadier, as if your own feet learned soft-shoed geometry from the sleepers. The competition nears climax, but the lesson lingers. Sometimes navigating waking life's muck and sedans might require dreamer's grace, even when eyes stay wide open. You edge into Fleet Street's broadest expanse, where the emerald-draped dais rises like a polite green hillock in the lantern glow. Atop it gleams the fabled trophy, a freshly polished silver chamber pot, handle adorned with miniature laurel leaves, interior lined with mother-of-pearl, so it won't tarnish if the winner chooses. Out of perverse pride to actually use it, 2 footmen flank the prize, each wearing cotton in their ears to prevent any clap or cheer from involuntarily escaping. Their livery buttons sparkle, their expressions hover between reverence and disbelief. Mainstream historical fact. Georgian charity events often auctioned novelty chamber pots engraved with witty mottos. Fleet Relief, Royal Throne, to raise funds for hospitals. Borrowing that fashion, Sleepwalking racers adopted the pot as symbol of nocturnal excellence, a wink at slumber's most private companion. Tonight's vessel allegedly came from a silversmith favoured by the Prince of Wales, though he would surely disclaim lending regal plumbing to public sport. An officiant, same portly barrister who rang the dinner bell, shuffles forward clutching parchment scroll. He clears his throat with decibel control, worthy of a cathedral mouse, and announces the first category. Quietest footstep. Lady Farnham's nephew, candle still alight, stands centre stage, eyes closed, chin tipped like a sleep statue. Attendants guide him to a faint chalk X painted on cloth. Spectators deploy the finger tap ovation, fluttering digits that sound like moth wings brushing parchment. He bows unconsciously. Silver crescents on slippers flash. One crescent catches cloth and everyone winces, but no audible scrape occurs. Barrister nods to stewards who seize pot's base and elevate it shoulder high, a gleaming crown without fanfare. Joke 1 murmurs in your head. Every athlete dreams of hoisting hardware. This one just forgets to wake for it. A scribe records his name in copperplate, under category. Quirky tidbit. Rumour claims last year's pot winner set the trophy on mantle. Household cat mistook lustrous bowl for moonlit pond and attempted swan dive, producing clang so loud it shattered race's hush record. Household still pays glassblower for new figurines. Historians still argue whether mishaps like that spurred race committee to line interior with pearl this year. Hush insurance disguised as luxury. Next award, longest continuous snore. Mr. Bartholomew Haddington approaches, or rather, is wheeled forward on an upholstered library chair borrowed from Somerset House reading room. His snores resonate deeper than cello pizzicato, rattling teacups on a nearby tray. A surgeon presses silver stopwatch to his pulse, nods solemnly. Barrister raises smaller trophy, gold snuff box engraved with musical bars. A valet slips box into Haddington's dressing gown pocket, where it jingles against embroidered scales of justice. Joke 2 tiptoes, the only barrister paid in zeeds instead of fees, for most graceful obstacle avoidance. Sponsored by the Physicians' Quarrelling Society, the apothecary's wife receives a lace-wrapped bundle, a herbal eye mask infused with lavender and camphor. She remains tethered to maid, who accepts prize with curtsy so silent even silk whispers blush. Officiant reads citation praising dance-like pirouette around river pig and aquatic trough. The lavender sachets in her robe flutter as she exhales through dreams, scent lifting like incense in a chapel. Barrister rolls scroll, revealing final novelty prize, spontaneous scientific contribution. Criteria: any act that sparks new medical hypothesis during race. Sir Alonzo Smith stands half-slumped, parasol shredded, candle stub smoking but still glowing. Officiant recounts his flame-extinguished dark reacquisition episode, noting the phototropic subconscious debate it inspired. Physicians, Percival, Rotham, Ames, each scribble grudging approval. Prize: a slim leather journal embossed with Greek letter Phet for physis, nature, edges gilded. A steward tucks it into Sir Alonzo's satchel. He yawns mid-sleep, as if protesting extra reading. Now the silver pot must crown overall champion. Footmen lift it overhead. Candle halos glint on polished rim. Officiant unfurls red ribbon, threads through pot handle, and drapes over Lady Farnham's nephew's neck. Pot dangles against his velvet nightshirt, shining like absurd metal. Crowd unleashes grandest finger-tap crescendo of evening. Thousands of gloved digits drum hushed applause until air seems to purr. Joke 3 arrives. If future marathoners wore bedclothes and chamber pots, brand sponsorships would finally get interesting. Mainstream fact slides back. Newspapers of 1791 described such ceremonies with sly humor, calling chamber pot trophies commodes of commendation. Satirist James Gilray published etching titled "Sound Asleep Champion," lampooning a pot-laden aristocrat propped by valets. This very night, a caricaturist sketches feverishly in shadows, capturing nephew's drooping chin and silver pot gleam. Tomorrow's broadsheet sales guaranteed. With prizes dispensed, stewards begin the delicate task of transporting sleepers to waiting sedan chairs. Some will awaken halfway home, bewildered to find laurels, pot or lavender mask upon their laps. Others may sleep through dawn, discovering trophies only when valet informs them of unexpected prestige. Barrister announces hush free-for-all. Spectators may now vocalize up to medium parlor volume. Cheeks flush, polite sighs erupt like kettle release, but no full cheers. Habit lingers. Physicians cluster again. Percival claims smoke theory vindicated by nephew's perfect path. Ames counters husbanding lavender, proved decisive. Rotham still worships cobble tilt. They agree at least that prize ceremony offered robust qualitative data. They drag you to sign supplementary observation sheet. You oblige. Ink pen scratching first loud noise you've made in hours. Steward whistles. A soft trill, summoning vendors who roll carts of hot chocolate and coffee. With hush lifted, spoons clink, laughter bubbles, coin clatters escalate. Lane by lane, city's usual clamour returns like dawn chorus. Yet something of hush persists. Voices naturally modulate lower, as though ears recalibrated. Even horses tread careful. Georgian London, if only for moment, learned courtesy from dreamers. Quirky postscript emerges. Footman reveals silver pot is actually punch bowl repurposed. Committee lacked funds for new silverware due to gambling debts. They vow to engrave winner's name nevertheless. Historians still argue whether authenticity matters when symbolism snores louder than provenance. In hush's afterglow, symbolism wins. Lanterns extinguish one by one. Racers depart tucked in sedan chairs. Spectators disperse, muffled shoes marking cobbles. You clutch pocketful of betting slips, profit modest but memories priceless. Candle smoke thins into pre-dawn chill. Churches prepare to toll as silver pot disappears down Strand. You recognize it carried more than milk of ambition. It transported citywide experiment in civility, where people gambled on stillness, cheered in whispers, and found delight in letting others keep dreaming. You walk toward Blackfriars Bridge, chamber pot gleam fading behind. Dawn smudges horizon apricot. River gulls call loud, unapologetic, breaking hush at last. Yet you smile, footsteps instinctively soft, as if taught by crescent-weighted slippers. Tonight the quiet was trophy enough, and you carry it home in every slowed inhales, every glove-muffled memory. The dawn barely has time to wipe last traces of candle soot from the sky before Fleet Street's printing presses thunder awake, hammering out broadsheets that trumpet last night's marvels. You duck into a stall selling hot buns, steam coiling around your hat brim, while the vendor clips a fresh sheet to his wall. Bold Gothic letters shout, "Somnambulist triumphs again," silver pot worn with dignified drowse. You grin, imagining Lady Farnham's nephew sipping chocolate while wondering why his neck aches from a chamber pot medallion. Joke one drifts in, the man will need a solicitor to draft a will for his new punch bowl. The bun's cinnamon warmth fades as Sunday bells peal from St. Clement Danes. Crowds shuffle toward pews, some still wearing gloves out of habit. You follow, slipping into a side bench just as Reverend Jasper Whittington ascends the pulpit, robes fluttering like crow wings. His gaze sweeps the congregation, eyes landing on soot-smudged lantern boys, mulberry waistcoated bookies, even the sleepy physician Percival, who snoozes upright in a corner pew. The Reverend clears his throat, voice amplified by vaulted stone, and unleashes a sermon seasoned with enough fire to wake half the Thames. Mainstream historical fact: Georgian pulpits often doubled as editorial pages, commenting on theatrical trends, balloon ascents, and yes, sleepwalking races. Moralists fretted that wagering on unconscious bodies courted spiritual sloth. One pamphlet likened it to playing dice upon the eyelids of the soul. Reverend Whittington quotes such tract verbatim, pounding Bible for emphasis. He brands sleepwalking competitions midnight folly that lures good Christians from beds into streets where devil prances in waxen hats. Congregation murmurs, someone stifles giggle at that mental image. He launches into warnings. Wagers liquefy virtue. Whispered applause seduces humility. Silver chamber pots foster prideful plumbing. Quirky tidbit slides mid-rant. Whittington claims a parishioner found her toddler strapping tapers to teddy bear, planning his own nursery race. Proof wicked fashion trickles down faster than gin. Mothers gasp. You picture a stuffed bear with miniature candle hat, snoring button eyes. Joke 2 tugs sleeve. Next step is paw-sized chamber pot for best plush sleepwalker. Reverend's tone swells as he prophesies night races escalating into somnolent Sabbaths, where Londoners drift past pews, still asleep, tithes unpaid. He calls on city fathers to levy fines on organisers, redirecting proceeds to orphan bread funds. Historians still argue whether such pulpit pressure spurred magistrates' sporadic crackdowns or merely inflated ticket prices via vice tax. Either way, city records note a surge in nocturnal assembly licenses, special moral surcharge, the following month. He punctuates homily with scripture, "Awake thou that sleepest." Congregants nod vigorously, yet irony drips as Percival jolts, having dozed mid-scolding. A parish boy elbows him. Percival adjusts wig, apologizes, vows in whisper to publish rebuttal pamphlet titled "In Defense of Therapeutic Somnolence." Joke 3 flickers. London may soon witness the first pillow fight fought with pamphlets. After service, church porch transforms into debate floor. Ladies clutch prayer books while trading gossip. One claims her footman spent wages on quietest pools. Another frets her daughter wants lavender-scented gown, not for rest but for midnight parade, prestige. Vendors offer handbills. Somnambulism, sin or science. printed with dual columns, one quoting doctors, other quoting psalms. You sample bun crumbs, overhear a barrister hinting new legislation might ban races within 50 yards of churches. Mainstream fact returns. House of Commons petitions in 1792 sought to restrict nocturnal gatherings after moral outcry. Though targeting unruly mobs, wording was broad enough to encompass sleepwalk events. Enforcement loomed like grey cloud over candle hats. You drift along Strand listening to city's shifting tone. Coffeehouse patrons still whisper odds, but gloved hands clutch newspapers emblazoned with satirical cartoons. Priests chasing sleepwalkers, armed with feather pillows instead of staffs. A print titled "Dreamers in Stocks" shows snoring racers locked in wooden pillory, crowds pelting them with laudanum bottles. Artists profit from moral storm even as they mock it. Turn into a pamphlet shop where broadsides hang like drying laundry. One sheet, ink still glistening, features Reverend Whittington atop pulpit hurling chamber pot at moon. Beneath reads "Counter Race, this Tuesday, awake and repent walk." Participants vow to march city in vigilant prayer, eyes wide open, no bets. Curious minds speculate which parade will attract bigger crowd. Evening descends. You attend candlelit salon hosted by Lady Hartley, self-styled patroness of respectability. She leads discussion circle topic: somnambulist races, moral malady or medicinal miracle. Guests include a bishop sipping lemon water, a playwright sniffing snuff, and Dr. Ames poised with cochlear diagram. Debate stays civil until Mulberry bookie crashes party disguised as music tutor, handing out cards for upcoming hush gratis event. Bishop sputters tea, hostess shoes bookie but pockets card for research. Hypocrisy twinkles like chandelier crystals. Ames counters clergy concerns. She presents pulse data showing racers wake refreshed, hearts steady as cathedral clocks. She posits that supervised nocturnal exercise prevents bed sores, strengthens postural muscles, maybe staves off melancholia. Bishop grumbles about souls. Playwright applauds potential new plot twist. Historians still argue whether medical defenses quelled backlash or simply masked gamblers' persistence. Within week, broadsheets report first pulpit patrol. Reverend-led volunteers roam streets ringing small bells to wake sleepers. Irony thick as plum pudding. First patrol collides with race audience. Scuffle muted by etiquette but breaks hush rule. Race halted. Moralists claim victory. Gamblers relocate to private gardens behind high walls, selling limited tickets and branding events therapeutic promenades. Joke 4 bonus. Rebrand solves sin. Just add Latin word and subscription fee. You attend one clandestine garden event. Candle hats glow among box hedges. Lavender drifts under moon. Hush maintained, but moral tension crackles beyond walls. Watchmen peer through keyholes. Pamphleteers scribble accusations. This dance of condemnation and indulgence composes new nocturne. Sleepwalk craze no longer innocent hush, but contested terrain, where sermons duel with snore counts. Yet, as you stroll back toward Fleet Street one late dusk, you realize moral backlash has birthed something unexpected. Public conversations about sleep health, urban quiet hours, even women's participation in scientific discourse. Ames invited to speak at Learned Society, albeit side room. London's conscience, stirred by chamber pot trophy, begins scrutinizing tavern riots with same zeal, campaigning for street lighting reform to balance hush with safety. Historians still argue whether reverends inadvertently advanced public health by attacking spectacle. Evidence suggests sermon fire forged new social steel. Passing St. Clement again. You notice churchyard sign advertising Wednesday lecture, The Physiology of Dreams, open to gentlefolk and servants alike. Reverend co-hosts with Dr. Percival part truce part fundraising for orphan bread. The hush once pure sport now underwrites charity. Maybe moral panic softened edges of folly into purposeful civic fabric. You pause, tasting damp air heavy with coal soot, lavender ghost and fresh print ink. In moral backlash's wake, the city hums quieter. Watchmen's whistles tune softer. Coffeehouse doors hung with felt pads. Church bells muffled on race nights. Hush culture survived sermon fire, tempered like steel, hammered under scripture blows. You step on. reflecting that every spectacle invites sermon, every sermon leaves echo, eventually echo shapes new rhythm. Georgian London's sleepwalk races continue, but now under gaze of candlelight and stained glass alike. Dreamers guided not just by lavender, smoke or cobble tilt, but by conscience whispering in corridors between pulpit and prize dais. And you, once mere spectator, now witness this evolution. Folly sparking repentance, repentance spurring inquiry, inquiry birthing progress one soft footstep at a time. You trudge through a drizzle-dark alley behind Fleet Street, shoes brushing past bundles of damp straw that cushion the thunder of the printing presses within. Inside, brass gears clank and ink rollers sigh, London's mechanical heart pumping out news faster than a gossiping duchess. Tonight's edition is special. Every sheet advertises a fresh satirical engraving lampooning last week's sleepwalk spectacle. The air reeks of linseed oil, warm metal, and that tangy note of freshly milled lampblack, an aroma oddly soothing when paired with the low percussive hum of presses. A journeyman printer waves you in, finger pressed to lips. Hush is sacred, even here. He fans a still wet broadsheet and holds it up to the lantern. There, etched in furious cross-hatching, a caricature titled "The Lord of Naps" depicts Lady Farnham's nephew tottering beneath his silver chamber pot medal, slippers exaggerated into cartoon flippers. Above him, a banner reads, "Quiet as mice, yet pockets raw." You feel your mouth curl in a conspiratorial grin. Joke one chimes in, "Nothing earns immortality like being roasted in a newspaper you might accidentally use to light tomorrow's fire." Mainstream historical fact. 18th century London devoured satirical prints much the way modern phones devour memes. Shops along St. Paul's churchyard dangled engravings from hooks. Crowds gathered to laugh, critique wigs and debate politics. James Gilray and Thomas Rowlandson sharpened social commentary into burins, and no trend, whether balloon mania or sleepwalking races, escaped their biting ink. You step deeper into the print hall, where long oak tables display proof sheets. One cartoon shows Reverend Whittington swinging a censor's feather wand like a saber, charging a herd of snoring aristocrats whose candle hats sputter like terrified fireflies. A speech bubble spouts, "Halt thy slothful stride, ye dream-drunk sinners." In the corner, a sly footnote, "Available as handkerchief embroidery next week." The printer winks, cross-merchandising, Georgian style. A second print, more playful than scathing, crowns Sir Alonzo Smith, Baron of Bumbles and Broken Parasol, portraying him in Roman toga, riding a giant candle like a hobby horse. Fringe tidbit. One cheeky publisher sold miniature wax candles molded into tiny riders, collectible somnambulist figurines, and they sold out within days, stuffed into mantelpiece displays across Mayfair drawing rooms. The Apprentice lays a copper plate under your fingertips, still warm from the press. You trace its grooves, feeling the ridges that will spread gossip across breakfast tables by dawn. The image here is subtler. Dr. Percival, Miss Ames, and Dr. Rotham bicker over a dozing pig wearing a nightcap. The caption, "Let us now snore over contested cobble." Historians still argue whether these satirical prints undermined or amplified the physician's claims. Some journals note increased lecture attendance after a good lampoon. You sidestep a puddle of spilled sizing and bump into a young artist, spectacles fogged, sleeves smudged black. He reveals his latest sketch, a double-panel piece titled "Before and After the Wager." In the first frame, prim society matrons sip chocolate. In the second, they trade betting slips under pews. You stifle a snicker. The artist's grin widens. Joke 2 flutters. Fleet Street might mint more coins with ink than the mint does with silver. The press is slow. The foreman orders an ink break. Journeyman cup steaming barley coffee laced with, of course, lavender syrup, a whimsical homage to the apothecary's wife. You wrap chilled hands around a mug. Warmth seeps through bones like gentle footlights glowing under closed eyelids. Even here, hush reigns. Voices remain low to preserve the half-night ambience favored by typesetters. As the foreman stirs the sludge, he tells you about a fringe pamphlet claiming sleepwalk races are Masonic plots to measure city ley lines under guise of midnight sport. Masons mapping with moonlit footsteps. He chuckles. You note, another quirky rumor for the archive. You lean over a compositor's shoulder while he strings type into a form. Sleepwalking craze draws ink and ire alike. Beneath a subheadline, physician's spa, pulpits roar, printers profit. The compositor, eyes bleary, whistles a tune too quiet to wake mice. A devil boy print apprentice flips type blocks, almost dropping a lowercase p. You rescue it from the floor, catching a tiny horseshoe of lead, earning nod of respect. The boy whispers that every fallen letter curses the page with misprint ghosts. You return it regofterately. Mainstream fact. Misprints often became accidental satire. Consumers collected rare blunders, like one sheet erroneously naming Reverend Whittington. Revenant Whittington. A gaffe now fetches guineas at estate sales. Printer superstition thus mixed with keen business sense. Errors turned profitable oddities. Tonight no one wants to jinx their hot item, so hush melds with vigilance. A bell clinks, break over, presses roar again, wooden frames creaking. The rhythm, strangely soothing, lulls you into daydream. Each thump a giant heartbeat, each squeal of press bed a long exhale. Joke 3 pulses. London spends half its time awake turning dreams into ink, and the other half asleep turning ink into dreams. You exit into pre-dawn chill, clutching sample prints gifted by the artist. The sky fades from inky violet to bruised peach. Newspaper hawkers already shout softly at first. Silver pot triumph, candle hats mocked. Their calls will crescendo by breakfast, but hush etiquette still tinges their tone. Winding home past shuttered stalls, you pass a haberdasher's window boasting tiny candle hats for dolls. Trend spreads faster than satire itself. Next door a perfumery touts Hypnos bouquet, a lavender tallow candle as worn by society dreamers. Commerce drinks deep from ink and wax. Historians will later note how satire accelerated commodification of the craze. Objects lampooned one day, sold in droves the next. As dawn fully breaks, bells resume regular clamour. The hush culture dissolves into ordinary clatter. Yet every shop window, headline and hatpin retells last night's hush in louder language. And you, strolling with bundle of prints under arm, feel a strange satisfaction. Your footsteps, though awake, now share rhythm with engraved jokes, proof that dreams, once recorded, march on through daylight, wearing ink instead of candlelight. Moonlit hush is a fragile thing, and you soon witness how the glow of progress and a few sharp whistles bleach it from London's cobbles. It begins innocently on a winter evening in 1807, when you wander toward Pall Mall and pause beneath a brand new contraption, an iron post tipped with glass panes, hissing like a dainty dragon while spitting pale blue-white light. Gaslight, they call it. Bright enough to read by, even bright enough to jolt a dreamer from mid-stride. You shield your eyes, squinting at the sudden glare, and think, goodbye, candle hats. Your monopoly is over. Mainstream historical fact. Frederick Windsor's Gaslight and Coke Company launched its first trial lamps along this very street, and by 1813, the West End glowed nightly beneath hundreds of gas mantles. Lamplighters traded wicks for valves, and Londoners marvelled that darkness itself could be banished at the twist of a tap. But for sleepwalking racers, the miracle proved menace. Where candle halos once guided gentle hush, gas jets blasted dazzling cones that pierced eyelids and shrank shadows into toothy black slivers. The first casualty you observe is Sir Alonzo Smith, ever eager to defend his championship of unconscious eccentricity, attempting a hush race under the new lights. Midway down St. James's, a sputter of gas flares brighter, and he blinks awake, startled, parasol falling like a wounded bat. Spectators gasp, bookmakers groan, lamplighters shrug. Joke 1 smirks at your elbow, high-tech street lamps 1, dreamers 0. A fortnight later, the Metropolitan Police Act of 1829 marshals Peel's blue-coated officers onto night streets, truncheons swinging with bureaucratic enthusiasm. They view hush races less as medical marvels and more as public order bait. You watch Constable Peters inspect a candle hat, tutting about fire codes, then issue permit to perambulate unconscious forms, so dense even the barrister can't pass them awake, let alone asleep. Quirky tidbit: one canny bookmaker hires a scrivener to forge stamps on blank permits, selling them as souvenirs that double as excuses if caught stumbling home drunk. No, officer, I'm part of an approved medical demonstration. Historians still argue whether gaslights or peelers dealt the mortal blow. You suspect a tag team. Lamps woke the racers, police find the onlookers, and together they choked the hush culture to near silence. By 1835, Fleet Street's caricaturists turned their burins toward railways and balloon ascents. Chamber pot trophies gathered dust on mantelpieces beside cooling board patents and phrenology busts. The city's appetite for novelty migrated towards steam whistles, whose shrieks outranked any finger-tap ovation. Joke 2 observes, if you can buy a locomotive ticket to Bristol, why bother betting on someone strolling to Covent Garden in their nightie? You stroll memory's path down dimmer alleys. Griffin's Yard scaffold dismantled, now front of a lithography shop. Milford Stairs horse trough replaced by shiny iron hydrant, those pine-scented sawdust barrels sold off to stable keepers. Coffeehouses once bursting with hush wagers now host debates on galvanic telegraphs, while surgeons dissect frogs rather than snore cadence. Dr. Percival publishes one final pamphlet, Observations on Ocular Arousal by Gas Illumination, then retires to Bath, where he preaches tepid water cures. Miss Ames joins Royal Society lectures on equilibrium, still invoking semicircular canals but no longer dodging pigs. Their quarrel cooled yet unresolved, no more wandering sleepers to test hypotheses. You do witness a few tenacious attempts at revival. One summer, enterprising garden owner in Kensington plants tall yew hedges to block gas glow, advertises somnambulist soirees, complete darkness guaranteed. Tickets sell until the Metropolitan Police raid, citing safety hazards and encouragement of morally ambiguous wagering. Another faction tries dawn races before lamps extinguish, but songbirds void hush rules, chirping critics who startle sleepers worse than whistle or gas hiss. Joke 3 sighs, nothing ruins a REM sprint like a sparrow singing Wake Up Champion. Even manufacturers pivot. Candle hat makers shrink their millinery into tabletop novelty lamps. Lavender-scented gowns become nightshirts for fretful convalescents. Weighted slippers re-emerge as gait training tools for injured soldiers. The silver chamber pot trophy is reportedly melted into punch cups for a railway shareholders' banquet. You mourn irony's demise but sip from replica anyway. Progress tastes faintly of tarnished laurels. With hush races fading, city noises reclaim nocturnal turf. Newspaper carts rattle, omnibus drivers shout. Factory whistles pierce smog. Yet, perhaps because hush once existed, Londoners seem to notice clamour more. Ordinances pop up limiting street music after 11, requiring padding on iron-shod wagon wheels. The hush may be dead, you think, but its ghost lingers, tugging city toward tempered tones. Physicians move indoors, founding polite sleep institutes where patients pace padded corridors free of pigs and parsnips. They record brainwaves with galvanometers, chasing the same mystery under sputtering gas sconces instead of candle hats. You wander one such clinic, starched sheets, corridors smelling of carbolic and lavender water. Electrodes trace lines across rolling paper, far removed from Fleet Street's sawdust and finger symphonies. A white-coated assistant recognizes you, gifts an electrode printout, and whispers that it looks just like the snore waveform Mr. Haddington achieved in '97. The hush legacy encoded in voltage peaks. You run finger over ink zigzag, feeling nostalgic paper-cut tingle. Outside, a final drizzle coats gas lamps in oily halos. Constables patrol but stop to adjust timetable on their shiny new pocket watches. You toe the curb, imagining weighted crescents guiding your slippers. You inhale coal-tinged air, almost hearing lavender laugh beneath smog. Progress stomped hush true, but also preserved its lessons. Softer wheels, quieter whistles, scientific rigor for dreams. Georgian folly dissolved, yet residue fragrances Victorian pragmatism. As you head home, cheeks warmed by lamp glow, you recall first night's hush, finger taps, candle halos, chamber pot glint. You smile at memory's irony. Bright lamps ended races, yet illuminated paths for safer streets and structured sleep science. The city never truly sleeps. Gas units hiss all night, but at least it now dreams with purpose. You step through swipe card doors into a 21st century sleep laboratory. A room so white it feels laundered in moonlight, humming softly with filtered air. Gone are candle hats and lavender ribbons. In their place are EEG caps sprouting rainbow wires, infrared cameras perched like discreet gargoyles, and mattresses rigged with pressure sensors that tattle on every twitch. A technician hands you paper booties and greets you in hush-appropriate whisper. Some customs, you note, never die. A volunteer lies on the bed, electrodes mapping his scalp in gleaming constellations. As he drifts off, a wall monitor blooms with pastel brainwaves. The line wiggles, dips, then blooms into jagged bursts. Rapid eye movement fireworks that Azarinsky first documented in 1953. Mainstream historical fact. That discovery rewrote what doctors thought they knew about dreams, launching decades of research into REM, circadian rhythm, and disorders from narcolepsy to parasomnia. Yet the technician confides that even with modern sensors, sleepwalking's exact compass remains elusive, still tiptoeing somewhere between spinal reflex and midnight mystery. Historians still argue whether Georgian races were quaint parlor trick or proto-citizen science collecting gate data well before ethics boards and grant forms. You watch a second screen showing foot pressure heat maps. Red blobs trace the volunteer's unconscious stroll on a treadmill, mimicking Fleet Street without pigs or chamber pots. Researchers layer white noise recordings, lavender scent, and low-level LED glows to test which cue most shapes his somnolent zigzag. Joke one nudges, it's a candle hat race with Wi-Fi. The volunteer turns left, a lavender gust wins this round. The technician logs results, admits tonight's study is funded by mattress company seeking dream-positive foot-feel foam. Commerce still walks in its sleep. Across the hall, another lab recreates hush etiquette. Participants wear fingertip gyroscopes to measure how silently they can applaud. A marketing team hopes to patent a silent cheer device for late-night esports. Quirky tidbit. Prototype gloves feature piezo buzzers that vibrate at 20 Hz, silent to ears, but pets reportedly sprint under couches when test claps start. During break, you sip decaf in a glass-walled lounge overlooking the city. Sodium streetlights shine below, bright enough to banish star fields, yet labs compensate with blackout curtains and circadian-friendly bulbs. Joke 2 wonders whether Georgian gamblers reincarnated, now short stocks on melatonin after sundown. A postdoc mentions an anime convention in Tokyo that hosts somnambulist cosplay sprints. Contestants in weighted slippers navigate padded hallways, while judges score costume accuracy. Heritage lives, albeit with neon wigs instead of powdered ones. Back in observation room, the walker's treadmill halts automatically when sensors detect micro-wake. He sits up, baffled, electrodes dangling like festive pasta. A researcher offers clip of last 10 minutes. He watchfully sidestepped virtual carriage while snoring into lapel mic. He asks, amazed, "Did I win?" Joke 3 smiles. Every sleepwalker is a secret competitor, trophy or not. Before leaving, you scan a hallway exhibit, chronicling sleep science milestones. 1790 classified ad for Sleepwalk Carter hangs beside 1896 photograph of Baron von Stoffel, strapped to bed for polysomnography pioneer test. Center stage, a genuine Georgian weighted slipper and silver chamber pot trophy, loaned from V&A, gleaming under spotlights. The label notes hush races inspired earliest debates on safe public nights, prefiguring noise ordinances, and eventually quiet zones around hospitals. Progress often tiptoes in on satin soles. You exit into modern street raw buses hiss, earbuds bleed tinny bass, but catch faint residues of hush in automatic doors that whoosh softly, in pedestrian crossings that chirp rather than clang. Lessons linger. Design for gentle nights, cherish dark soft grammar, and remember that even a bustling metropolis once fell silent for silver pots and finger-tap applause. As you stroll home, you imagine tucking those lessons under your own pillow. Weighted crescent slippers not required. Candle hats gave way to LEDs. Lavender sachets to white noise generators. But purpose endures. Coax body toward rest, court dreams half-lit wisdom, and respect hush as priceless civic furniture. You inhale, slow, soften footfall on concrete, and wonder if someone above decades hence will analyze your strides, still puzzling how the unconscious plots its secret routes through moonlight and neon alike. Let the laboratory's quiet hum fade until it is little more than a far-off murmur, soft as wind slipping through half-open sash. Picture yourself standing on a cobblestone street that glows neither with gaslight nor LED, but with gentle silver of a slow-rising moon. The air is cool, tinged with lavender and distant chimney smoke, a blend of centuries comforting itself into twilight. Breathe in slowly, letting shoulders loosen and eyelids grow pleasantly heavy. Somewhere beyond, you might sense the hush of long-ago finger taps, that polite applause too gentle to wake even a dream. Exhale, feeling your own heartbeat settle into that rhythm, calm, unhurried, steady as slippers brushing sawdust. With each breath, imagine the streetlights lowering themselves, dimming one by one until only starlight maps your path. Obstacles melt away. Pigs, sedan chairs, and whistles shrink to harmless shadows at the lane's edge. There is only smooth, quiet ground beneath your feet, guiding you deeper into the safe, slow dark. If stray thoughts wander in tomorrow's tasks, yesterday's noise, let them drift past like candle smoke caught by breeze, visible for a moment and then gone. In their place arrives a blanket's warm weight, a chamber pot trophy's faint pearlescent gleam turned now to pale, sleepy moon. Every muscle unknots, every nerve settles, as though lavender sachets were gently pressed to temples. Feel a final wave of calm roll from crown to heel, smoothing brow, softening jaw, warming fingers and toes. The city outside quiets. Inside, your own streets fall silent too, poised for dreams' measured promenade. You are safe, you are still. Let hush have the last word tonight.